This podcast is a member of WGPRN, WildGamesProductions.com. Hello, folks, and welcome to another edition of the Darkling Podcast. The Darker Days Radio presents the Darkling Podcast, episode number 7. This week, me and my faithful co-host Mark will sit down and talk to Mr. Monty Cook. Oh, and by the way, I'm back from my scuba diving lesson, or whatever I was doing, Mark.
Was that good? Did you have fun?
Yeah, I had a load of fun, yeah.
Yeah.
It was tons of fun. I saw some starfish. And no, I didn't go scuba diving, Mark.
You did. I know you did. I saw the pictures.
Actually, I was sitting down with some Oh. Well, never mind. I really shouldn't say that.
Yes, folks, lucky number 7 this week. We have gaming designer and author Monty Cook with us on the show. We'll be talking to him in just a minute. You've been sending in your questions, and we're going to put them to the man himself. So thanks for that.
Yeah, and if your question didn't get asked, well, too effing bad. No, I'm just kidding. We just only allowed to... Why not, okay? I'm American. I'm allowed to. I've been watching a lot of Gordon Ramsay. I don't know. Whatever.
Blame it on us, sure. Why
exactly,
not?
Why not? If all your questions didn't get answered, I apologize. You can always contact Monty Cook directly at his site. Just go to montycook.com and ask your questions away. And we'll head right into... actually, first, Mark, how can you get a hold of us?
Well, you can stop by our forums at wildgamesproductions.com, or you can email us at darkerdaysradio@gmail.com, or go to the Facebook fan page.
Yeah, and we can also pop on Twitter, which I've ignored quite a bit, but actually, Alucard
D20 on Twitter, or you can follow us just through WGPR on Twitter too. They're all up and running.
Or you can stalk Clive Barker, right? You can stalk him in the darkness.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Actually, someone had emailed me, Mark, and asked how that whole situation came about, and I was like, you started it, I just went with that.
Yeah, really. It's funny because it's true.
Yeah, it's funny that people don't know it is true, and they're thinking you're just joking about it.
Sad to say. No.
Yeah. All right, folks, we're going to head right into the interview, so we'll see you in about, 20 minutes.
Southeast Queensland has been declared a natural disaster area.
It is a global depression.
The collapse is over. Civilization is grinding to a blood-soaked halt.
A new world order at the end of...
In a bid to halt the virus from spreading, the government has closed schools, museums, and other public buildings.
You are a survivor in the darkness, fighting to keep the light of hope alive.
This is Twilight 2013. A role-playing game of post-apocalyptic survival and renewal, set in a world overrun by military conflict, where daily existence is a grueling affair. This is devastation. This is World War III. Will you raise the flag of a fallen nation, or light the watchfires against the coming night? The choice is in your hands now. The last words from home set you free. Good luck. You're on your own. Ask your retailer about Twilight 2013, or drop by 93gamesstudio.com to order your copy today.
Okay, folks, this week we sat down on the Darkling Podcast with Mr. Monty Cook. Mr. Monty Cook, how are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me on the show here.
Oh, yeah, Mark's with us, too. Hey, Mark.
Hey guys, how you doing? Great to be here with Monty Cook, one of the living legends of RPG design. Fantastic to have you on your show, Monty, and thanks for taking the time to join us here.
My pleasure.
Well, we'll jump right into it. We have a whole bunch of questions as we sent you, and you already saw. So the first question we have comes from Mr. Vergast, and he would like to... I'm sorry, that was Lost Heretic, right, Mark, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. You said not to make that mistake.
And I made the mistake too. If his question is for you, if you get a chance to write up a follow-up for the World of Darkness that you designed, what would it be, and how would you expand the setting?
Well, actually, I probably wouldn't expand the setting. Instead, I'd go the other way, and I would maybe create a product that kind of drilled down and got into some more specifics. One of the problems with creating a book like this is, you can't spend very much time and attention on any one given thing. And so there are lots of interesting little areas that it would be a lot of fun to flesh out even more, and kind of really get into the details of them that really only got a paragraph or two in the book itself. So maybe actual adventures would be fun to write for this, I think.
Some plug and play material that you can pick up and go with at your table.
Yeah, either that or just a source book that takes one specific section. We could take, we detailed out Minneapolis, for example, the Twin Cities in the book quite a bit, and we could focus in on that and do a whole book just on that, that kind of thing.
Right. Something like maybe like the event books that you did for Mal Havoc.
Well, yeah. Oh, that would be cool. Those books, those were interesting because they could, it was kind of you proposed one idea, and like we did one that was on war or something like that, and then how to add that into your campaign. You could certainly do that with World of Darkness.
Very cool. I'm using 2 of those in my Pathfinder game at the moment.
Oh,
Great
cool.
stuff.
Which ones?
Requiem for a God and When the Sky Falls.
Oh, excellent.
And Arcana Revolve too. So yeah, you're getting lots of playtime around my table.
Cool.
All right, Mark, you want to dip into the Beckett bucket and give a question for us?
Yes. Beckett, one of our regular contributors, wants to know, do you still have a good relationship with White Wolf, and could you see yourself working for them again?
I do have a good relationship with them. I have for years. When I was doing Mal Havoc Press full time, putting out D20 products, White Wolf was my publishing partner, and so I got to know them all really well. I've been down to the offices in Atlanta a few times, and so have a great working relationship with them, and consider a lot of those guys my friends.
Cool.
I could certainly see doing more work for them potentially, although actually I'm only my game design work is fairly limited right now. I'm doing a lot of different kinds of writing, and the only game design work that I'm doing currently is with my own website, dungeonaday.com.
Well, speaking about dungeonaday.com, that was my next question. Could you tell us a little bit about that project?
Sure. What that is it's kind of an old school dungeon, a big, huge mega dungeon, as some people call them, with 20 levels and hundreds of rooms and that kind of thing. But the thing that's a little bit different is what I do is I create one dungeon encounter every day, and I put that up on the website. And so basically, it's like I'm building a dungeon-based campaign. One encounter at a time, so you can see it as it grows. You can, if you're a member, because it's a subscription-based site, and so if you're a member, you get access to all of this stuff, and you can give me feedback on what you like and what you don't like, where you'd like it to go. Oh, I'd like to see more, undead or whatever. Plus, I provide lots of background info and behind-the-scenes sorts of articles where I talk about, I created this encounter in this particular way, and here's why, and here's some advice on running it when you use it in your game. And the cool thing about it is that you can use it as a big campaign, or you can just kind of pick and choose and cherry pick. Oh, I like this one and I like that one, and I'm going to use it, just those, and I'm going to stick them in my own adventure. It works pretty well either way.
So is it more like, I suppose, a classic sandbox mega dungeon, or does it have something more in common with Ptolus, where you have a setting and yet there are nevertheless overarching plots that run through it?
Well, for the most part, I look at it as an old school, like you say, sandbox campaign where it's a big dungeon. There are stories behind it. There are reasons for why the things that live there, and the weird magic and all the stuff that you get with a typical kind of dungeon campaign. But it's all really it's rather than there being you have to get to the bottom of the dungeon to save the world kind of quest. There's, it's more for people who are interested in just exploring. There are plenty of plot hooks and stories that can get woven into what's going on there and the NPCs and stuff. But for the most part, it's kind of old school.
Cool. Well, getting back to your take on the World of Darkness, another question from Beckett here. He says one of the things that he picked up on when he did a couple of reviews for us on a couple of previous shows, he mentioned that the base D20 rules are different to those that are used in Dungeons and Dragons or in Star Wars.
Right.
Now, are there rules in there that you'd originally intended for 3rd edition or use in your home games, or did you cook these up specifically for the World of Darkness? He says he really likes them, particularly the skills, and having a lot of your other books like Experimental Might and the various books of magic. He says Hallowed Might is a personal favorite of his. He hasn't noticed those rules in there, so he was just curious if these are fresh concoctions or if they've been sitting on the back burner for a while.
Well, when I was given the opportunity to do my own version of World of Darkness, they basically just gave me carte blanche. You could do whatever you want as far as both the setting and the rules. And so, it shouldn't come as too much of a surprise to anyone who knows my background that the rules ended up being very D20-ish. But they, like you point out, they are different. And that's because I didn't want to just create, here's D20 World of Darkness. What I wanted to create was a rule system that worked for the setting that I had, thought of, that I had created. And so that required a lot of changes and manipulations to the rules. However, that said, once I was all done, I have thought that a lot of the stuff in there, like, for example, maybe the magic system, which is, wholly different than regular D20, would be interesting to port back into a standard D20 campaign. I think you could do some interesting things. In fact, one of the things that I would find really fun to do, I think, would be to create a sort of more regular fantasy D&D style game, but use the World of Darkness rules. So, the wizard, it uses the mage rules in here, but maybe the fighter is kind of like a werewolf. Maybe you wouldn't kind of use all the standard trappings, but he can kind of become this killing machine kind of thing. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, when Beckett did his review last week, he did a lot of detail on the magic system. And that's one of the things that we picked up on right away was this would make a fantastic addition to be folded back into a D20 game. It's very cool.
Yeah, the only thing to keep in mind is that it takes a little bit more thought on the mage's part. In the same way that, in the regular World of Darkness mage game does. You don't just think pick 3 spells out of a book and go, the way you can with D&D. And so, that's the only thing to keep in mind is that there's a little more to it.
Yeah. Okay. Evo Shandor wanted to know why you made your take on the World of Darkness so drastically different from the White Wolf version. The different origin types for the supernaturals and what have you. It's very, very noticeable as being a huge step away from the standard published version. It's not just a D20 version of their existing games.
Right, and that is exactly the point. Like I said a few minutes ago, I didn't want to sit down and just create D20 World of Darkness.
Yeah.
When the guys at White Wolf came to me and they said, if you could do anything to the World of Darkness or with the ideas behind World of Darkness, what would you do? And I came up with a lot of different ideas, and the one that I settled on was sort of this almost kind of quasi post-apocalyptic World of Darkness, and so one of the things that I wanted to do was specifically to make it different from World of Darkness was how everything in World of Darkness has this long history with lots of information, and the vampire bloodlines go back to prehistory, and all that kind of stuff, which is really cool. But I wanted to create something that was completely different, so the obvious way to go was I made it so that vampires and werewolves and whatnot only just recently sprung into existence. And so it was all very intentional and kind of the point of it. Originally when the idea was pitched to me, the idea was that maybe down the line other creators would be given this opportunity. And so in addition to Monty Cook's World of Darkness, maybe it's sadly will never happen now, but in theory there could have been Gary Gygax's World of Darkness or whatever. Which is a neat idea.
It's fascinating.
Monty Cook's World of Darkness is kind of I like to think of it as sort of like an Elseworlds. If you're a comic book fan, it's not the standard World of Darkness. It's not meant to replace it. It's not meant to fit into continuity. It's just kind of a what if kind of thing.
Excellent.
Okay, cool. We have a bunch of questions from some guy named Mark now. So
he's a hack. You listen to him.
That hack. This Mark guy, the nerve of him, wants to know what kind of World of Darkness games have you played before writing your World of Darkness book?
Let's see. I've played Vampire and Mage a fair bit, and that I think I have played Werewolf only once, maybe twice. But those are the ones that I've played. I've never had the opportunity to play Wraith or Hunter or any of the others.
Mage, cool. Big fan of Mage.
Yeah, me too. That was my favorite of them all, and that probably shows a little bit in the book.
Yeah. No complaints here.
Cool. And this Mark guy also wants to know if you've run any games in the setting of your version of World of Darkness, and what have they been like?
Well, what I did was when I was creating the book, I did playtesting because I'm a big fan of that. Big supporter of playtesting.
It's important.
But it pretty much all really focused on the. Well, let me back up a minute. I kind of think of my World of Darkness as almost being like two different settings. You've got the post-apocalyptic kind of feel when you get in really close to where the nightmare wave started and everything. But as you get further out, it becomes more kind of a traditional, more like a traditional World of Darkness. In that the cities aren't destroyed and everything, but there's vampires and werewolves kind of in the shadows. And so since that was mostly like regular World of Darkness, or more like regular World of Darkness, I focused all of my playtests on the, in Minneapolis, where it's practically, a post-apocalyptic setting. You've got, everyone's kind of living in the ruins. You got the military trying to keep control over everything and doing a terrible job. And, vampires and werewolves and demons running amok. That's the part of it that appealed to me the most, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
Now you
mentioned.
I was just going to add that people have asked why the event where the Iconu first come through, why it happens where it does. Well, the epicenter of it is actually the town where I was born.
There you
so
go.
that's why it is where it is.
Little fact that some people didn't know.
Cool. Now, you said you've been working on a number of other non-RPG products recently, and as some of our listeners may know, you've just recently released the Skeptic's Guide to Conspiracies. Now, when you were researching that, did you come across any cool conspiracy theories about vampires, werewolves, mages, or other World of Darkness style denizens?
Well,
Or
actually,
is it all aliens and Kennedy?
There's a lot of aliens in Kennedy, but there's actually some pretty interesting mage-like theories that are really kind of way out there, having to do with some hidden inner circle of the Freemasons, and how they were behind the Kennedy assassination because it all had to do with the mystical trinity of I'm trying to remember it all, but it was a ritualistic killing of the king, and there was the Trinity site where they had experimented with the first nuclear weapons.
Oh, how cool.
And what was the third thing? I can't remember. But anyway, there was sort of this mystical... you can almost imagine a mage adventure based around some evil cabal of mages who are trying to pull off all these things, but make them just look like traditional events, covering up the mystical nature of it and the implications. Yeah, it was really neat.
Ritual Kingslaying, that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
And I have to make a note of that one just for a second here. Good stuff. Fantastic.
Okay, I have a couple more questions for you. I have a question for you. If some people consider Gary Gygax, well, most people consider him the father of D&D. Now, what do you feel about people considering you the new father of D&D and one of the people that helped re-envision a new beginning for D&D?
Well, that's pretty lofty. Pretty much all I have to say is that any time that my name is mentioned alongside Gary's, I take that as a gigantic compliment. Because Gary pretty much, Gary and Dave together pretty much created the hobby that we all love. No matter what role-playing game you play, they started it all. And so, it's just cool to be thought of in any way in relationship to them.
Awesome. Well, I have one last
fantastic.
question, and then Mark can get on to his if he has any more. But you had worked at TSR during the last administration before Wizards took over, when Lorraine Warren was in charge. What is your experiences about that, and how did it go there?
Well, I started working at TSR in 1994, and the WotC buyout happened in 1997. So I was there for the last 3 years, I guess. And, the thing is, so much of the kind of crazy business stuff that was going on at TSR at the time was pretty much entirely invisible to us. We were just... working away, making D&D, and having a great time. I mean, I have really almost nothing but really good memories of working at TSR because it was a lot of fun. It was a great group of people, and I never had any direct contact with Lorraine Williams. I never had any contact with the so-called suits that were messing things up by all accounts. So it was a great time, and it was cool to just kind of be even a small part of the history of the hobby that I have loved my whole life.
Excellent. Well, I seem to remember there was a really interesting series of blogs over at the Mal Havoc site about this a few years back, where you were talking to other people who'd been there at the time as well and getting their opinions too. So if any of our listeners want to go and look those up, there's some really interesting perspectives and stories that from people who were there.
Yeah, the reason that I did those interviews, and I'm really proud of those interviews, and I really am happy to have done them. And it was because, I don't know if you remember this, but a few years ago it was on some anniversary of D&D, and Wizards put out this big, lavish hardcover book, and it had all of these interviews with people famous and had been gamers. But they didn't do a whole lot of interviews with the people who had actually worked on the game, and I wanted to give people that insider, that feel and that look of what it was like to actually be there. And so Doug Niles and Bruce Cordell and tons of people that I talked to, and that was a lot of fun to put together.
They're better than the book. Outstanding. I recommend anybody go and hunt those down if they have the time.
Well,
So one last question from me, and normally Vince asks this one, but he seems to have forgotten it, so I'm going to get it, which is cool. If you could be a household appliance, which one would you be, and why?
I forgot about that question, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, we spring on everybody.
I think, boy, I'll go with. Does a television count as a household appliance?
Sure.
Yeah, we have one guy choose an iPhone, so you can have a TV.
Oh, yeah, I'll be the TV because I like to be entertaining. How about that?
Perfect.
Cool.
Well, Mr. Monty Cook, thank you for joining us this week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And how
It's
can
been a lot of fun.
Oh, great! And how can people get in contact with you? And where can they go to find out your stuff?
Well, MontyCook.com is sort of my primary site, but I encourage everybody to check out DungeonAday.com as well.
Excellent.
Okay.
Well, we're gonna head off this week, and we thank you for joining us. And take care.
All right, you too. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Okay, folks, that's going to wrap up the Darkling podcast for this week, and episode number 7. And we will, if you need to get in contact with us, you can go to darkerdays.tk. And Mark, what's our email address?
darkerdaysradio@gmail.com.
Been practicing that, huh?
I have, yeah.
That's awesome. And you can always check us out on Facebook. And what we're trying to do right now is revamp that so that you can actually sit on Facebook, listen to our show, add comments, and all that jazz. We're trying to get upwards of 100 fans on there. Once you do, you get your own /Facebook site instead of that long URL. So I just can't wait until we get up there. We're getting pretty close, but
Yeah, and if you're the 100th fan to register, I will send you my refreshing finger.
That's disgusting, Mark. I can't believe you just said that.
It might not be mine. No one will be able to tell.
That's really disgusting, Mark. Well, we're going to head out tonight, and thank you for joining us. This is Vince. Yeah, that's my name, Vince, a combination of Vince and Mark. I'm now a combo duo. Yeah. Anyway, this is Vince signing off for Mark. Good night, everybody.